This is the man of the moment, the man of the last couple decades. If it's going to tell us a dirty story about South Florida, there's something bad going on in South Florida, he knows about it. And be careful because he'll make a documentary about it, a damn good one at that. Best known for his critically acclaimed 2006 documentary film, The Cocaine Cowboys, of course. He's made it his life work to tell the Florida stories that most don't know, or that most people like to sweep under the alfombra, as we say in Spanish, under the rug. For the last 20 years, he has not stopped pointing his camera at the shady characters in the Sunshine State, in our beautiful state of Florida. But, you know, we're full of scandals and of plenty of stories to tell. A sunny place for shady people, as he likes to say it. Responsible for ESPN's 30 for 30, The U Part 2. It can be said if it's controversial and set in the 80s, Billy Corben's probably interested in that story. Billy, thanks for joining me today. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm tired. Thank you for asking.
What are you tired of?
I'm not tired of anything. I'm a little exhausted. We spent 12 years working on Cocaine Cowboys, The Kings of Miami. It was a real labor of love, a passion project. And so we're very excited and relieved that it's finally out.
So when people think about this, 12 years for like the first movies and then the 6-part series now on Netflix, or just these 6 parts and Netflix 12 years?
Just these 6 parts, just this series, yeah.
And why did it take so long?
It's good. You sound like my mother. Yeah, I know. Why did it take so long? The reality is that even though this is the 4th title in the Cocaine Cowboys franchise, it is the first story that we wanted to tell. I mean, growing up, I'm a native Floridian and a lifelong Miamian, and growing up in Miami, I think someone says it in the series, there may be 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but in Miami, there's only 1 or 2 degrees of Willie and Sal. So this was a story that we knew about. I went to high school at New World School of the Arts, which was right around the corner from the federal courthouse where Willie and Sal were tried when I was a junior in high school. When I went to the University of Miami, Sal had his second trial in 01 and 02. And so this was just always a part of our lives. And we wanted to tell this story in the first Cocaine Cowboys documentary. We just couldn't. The wounds were too fresh. Right. Sal had just been, spoiler alert, he'd been convicted in 02. And so we just couldn't get the access we needed. So through the years, as people got released from prison, got out of the witness protection program, we were able to do interviews and eventually accumulate what we needed to tell the story.
Now, to tell these stories is not easy for any of the characters involved. A lot of shady people, some more shady than others, some people implicated obviously directly in very serious crimes and even murders. Is it hard to convince people to tell their stories of this magnitude on film?
Well, a lot of this stuff happened a long time ago, several decades ago. And I will tell you that Sal Magluta and his family were good enough to open up their personal archive so that we could have the records and the videos and the materials that we needed to be able to tell this story as accurately as possible. And I will tell you that, on the first Cocaine Cowboys, there was a lot of dangerous people. I mean, I went into prison. We interviewed hitman Jorge Rivi Ayala for Griselda Blanco, La Madrina. And you could argue is a dangerous, even sometimes scary dude. But on this show, honestly, it felt like everybody I met, it felt like I was going to my friend's house in high school in Westchester to chill at their family's house and have cafecito and guava and cream cheese and pastelitos. Like Sal Magluta's mom made me cafecito, and we sat looking through their photo albums of Sal in Cuba, through he came during Vietnam, all the way through their world champion offshore powerboat racing years, all the way into the 90s. And it was just everybody I met on it was like Los Muchachos. It was just like, I know that some of them are criminals and some of them committed terrible crimes, but their families were all just like normal, lovely, hardworking Miami people. His parents had a bakery in Southwest Miami for like 40 years. They worked their asses off, and so they're just normal, cool, chill people.
At any point in these past 12 years, or since you've been, documenting these things, were you ever concerned for your safety, or ever concerned about the material that you had on that you had recorded that said, oh shit, this is like some serious stuff that implicates a bunch of other people? Did you ever feel, fear for your life, for your safety?
I think the scariest thing on this project and again, spoiler alert, this is in episodes 2 and 6. Willie and Sal at some point were preparing a proffer to possibly plead guilty. They were exploring that possibility before they ultimately went to trial. But in this proffer, this was a document about 30 pages long that outlined their organization. And in it, it contained a list of the people who were complicit in it, people who had knowingly assisted them in this alleged cocaine trafficking conspiracy, a multi-billion-dollar one. The government alleged they smuggled at least 75 tons worth over 2.1 billion. But this list of people contained people in the private sector, so private businesses that benefited from the largesse of their enterprise, public sector people, meaning elected officials, bureaucrats, people in government, and then law enforcement people who profited or were paid or knowingly participated in some way or benefited from this alleged cocaine conspiracy. And so that's always a bit alarming, because in this town, a lot of people in politics and in the government, they're here for multiple generations. So there's a lot of the same names and characters and last names that you hear over and over and over again. And so, there was definitely concern that maybe some of those people who basically got away, were never held accountable for their involvement in this, might be concerned about that.
And you learn a lot, obviously, in your documentaries. You have such an art form, and the way of your story telling is really amazing. It's captivating. It's very clear and precise. And again, it's entertaining, but you also learn a lot. And when Billy mentions Proffer, for those who have not seen the series now, the latest Cocaine Cowboys series, now on Netflix, of course, which is phenomenal. He mentions the word proffer. So proffer is basically a statement that you give with the understanding that information that you provide cannot be used criminally against you. And what was provided there from Sal Magluta and from Willie Falcon's team, right, was basically this long list that Billy just laid out of all these people that they paid off, politicians, cops, just a bunch of dirty people. And it's amazing that, that the government didn't work with them to take that information, because they probably could have done a lot better. They could have gotten a lot more people and made our streets a lot safer and cleaner had they taken up the information or investigated the information that was in that proffer. And of course, you block out all of that information and those names in the documentary. So that I found that quite fascinating. And the moment I saw that, and my producer Julio told me, I got you an interview with Billy Corben. I said, oh man, I'm crazy to talk to Billy to ask him about that, because I'm sure you got a lot of people maybe knocking on your door that want to know what names are underneath all that black Sharpie.
Yeah, someone said the sequel should be Cocaine Cowboys, The Proffer.
That's a whole nother series and documentary. Which, by the way, takes me to why do you think South Florida breeds? Why do we breed such shady characters in people? We have a transient population
and a lack of institutional memory. And every 5, 10, 15 years, the town doesn't look the same, not only aesthetically, with new construction, but the community changes. People leave, people die, a ton of new people come in. We don't really have any indigenous industry here. We subsist from hustle to hustle. We don't have a self-sustaining economy. It's like someone theorized that it's like a Ponzi scheme. Our economy relies solely on newcomers, new arrivals, influx of new outside revenue. And the second that stops, the whole economy effectively collapses. So, like the tech boom now, that's just the new cocaine. It's the new hustle. It's the new way to convince more people to come here, to buy real estate, to spend money in restaurants, to go to nightclubs. It's a real estate hustle. That's really what we are down here. And so that's what it's all about. And so I'm not making any judgments. I'm just making an observation. And so, we've always been like America's Casablanca. We are a transshipment point. We are, we are closer to Colombia than we are to Chicago right now down here. It's just we have a flavor of that sort of that point where people from all over the world, from every direction, come here and can really. We just have a very permissive environment in terms of, what do I say? I say, LA is where you go when you want to be somebody. New York is where you go when you are somebody. And Miami is where you come when you want to be somebody else.
And with that said, somebody that went to to a new world, someone that's, that's in the line of work that you do normally goes to New York or normally goes out west to California, why did you decide to stay in Miami?
Because you're here, Enrique.
Thank you. That sounds like
where else would I want to go?
It sounds like a bunch of bullshit, but I'll take it, Thank you.
No, but listen, there is a reason you're here. There's a reason why people who are successful in fields where they could maybe make more money or be bigger in other markets don't go. And it's because it is if I can't get ropa vieja, cafecito, or Cuban toast or croquetas or empanadas, I freak out. I don't work well in homogenized environments. I need this flavor, and I think we would agree that the most interesting people and the most interesting characters and the most interesting stories are all here in Miami. I mean, can you imagine a more interesting place to ply your trade if you are in radio or filmmaking or a journalist or a doctor, a lawyer, whatever, a police officer, a prosecutor, whatever you do, this is the most interesting place to do it.
And I really can appreciate, and I can appreciate that. I wouldn't want to live in any other city and in any other country than where in Miami and of course in our awesome United States of America. And although a lot of things are backwards and people at each other's necks, and it feels sometimes like a constant tug of war with certain things and certain topics and people, man, we really are blessed to be where we're at. Billy, you are really outspoken on Twitter with your hashtag because of Florida. You have had your run-ins with Commissioner Joe Carroyo over everything. I would say Ricky Ariola over vaccines, and you even had your run-ins with my friend Mayor Xavier Suarez. He hasn't escaped your unfiltered observation. Do you feel it's your civic duty to keep politicians in check?
Well, listen, Miami is a collective experience. We don't always behave that way. We've self-segregated. Miami is really less a melting pot than we are a TV dinner where sometimes the peas fall into the mashed potatoes. We have 34 municipalities. It gets very tribal.
Yeah.
And then people in Aventura don't care about Liberty City, and people in Liberty City don't care about Homestead, and people in Homestead don't care about Miami Lakes, and people in Miami Lakes don't care about the Grove, and the Grove doesn't care about Hialeah, and Hialeah doesn't care about Miami Gardens, and on and on and on. But the reality is we are all in this together. And we have a lot more in common than we don't. We all want the same thing. I think we all want freedom and liberty and success. We want our children, our grandchildren, to hopefully have better lives, than we had. And so and I think we all want to see a free Cuba as well. But we can have debates about how we get to certain places, how we solve certain problems. But we all basically have the same problems and the same hopes and the same dreams. And sometimes it, it feels like, we don't call it our Amy, we call it my Amy, right? It's Miami. And we drive that way. We treat each other that way, but I don't see why we shouldn't be happier. I mean, the weather, all things considered, is pretty beautiful. We're pretty lucky to live here, and I think we should all we should all embrace that and embrace each other a lot more. And I think that we should use our turn signals, to tell you the truth, Enrique. That's really what I think. If I have any message to the politicians or to the people, we should use our damn turn signals.
Right.
Okay?
And this is not a turn signal.
It's just friendly.
And this is not a turn signal. Not that I get it all the time, but I see it all the time, right? People think the middle finger is a turn signal.
Yeah. But I'm sorry, I didn't answer your question. I do want to answer your question. As I said before, we have a transient population, a lack of institutional memory, and we have political dynasties, and I would argue sometimes even crime families who come here and take advantage of us. 60% of the people who live in Miami-Dade County, according to the United Way, cannot afford to live in Miami-Dade County, struggle to make ends meet. With 3 or 4 jobs, they don't have time to participate in their government and get involved. I'm lucky enough to have a job, making a living, doing something I love in America in the 21st century. I know what a blessing that is. I also have the ability to stay in tune and stay in touch and try to inform myself with what's going on in local government. And I do, yes, I feel an obligation to let people know when people in the public sector who swear an oath to protect and serve us, to protect and serve the Constitution, when they are taking advantage of us and when they are stealing from us. I think it's an obligation that, I think the spirit of the 34 municipalities in Miami-Dade County, these villages and towns and cities, the spirit of it was to create more local and more accountable government, But the exact opposite happened. We just created 34 new opportunities for them to steal from us. And a lot of these cities operate as nothing more than criminal racketeering organizations where the government is victimizing the residents. I mean, look at Opelika, where the city hall was raided by the FBI years ago. Who's ever heard of such a thing? Yeah. So I think that people...
Is there a fix to that?
Vote better. And I think, stop voting for people who are your color or are your nationality or are your religion. Start looking at the options. I'm not saying don't vote for them. Right. I'm saying start looking a little bit deeper and a little bit further because they're not helping you just because they look like you.
You mind if I add in there and stop voting just for parties? Vote for people.
Please.
And good ideas. I've had it with these people, they vote, I'm Republican, so I vote this red wave or the blue wave. I think it's ridiculous, and that's why so many people in not just the state, but in the country every day are leaving the parties and becoming independent, like myself.
And listen, though, what they say is in a democracy, the people get the government they deserve. So you're absolutely right. You need to choose the best person for the job, regardless of party, nationality, color, religion. We need to. And by the way, if you know good people or you are a good person who cares about this community, run or recruit them to run and then vote for them. And that's what we really need. We need leadership that does not have warped priorities and perverse incentives. People that don't measure progress by the number of construction cranes that they can count on the horizon and the amount of public money that they can give to private millionaire and billionaires to build stadiums, for example. Yeah. Okay. And the perverse incentives are when they negotiate a deal, they're not negotiating with their money. They're negotiating with our money. And so they feel free to give away our property, to give away our money, because then that turns around into donations and contributions to them. And we need more accountable and more transparent government. And we need a better, we need a state attorney who will crack down on and prosecute public corruption, which we have not had for 28 years.
Talking about Kathy Fernandez-Rundle, obviously. Did it surprise you that the state attorney's office moved so swiftly in arresting the Miami Beach police officers after the incident just a couple of days ago where they were on camera beating and kicking a person that was already in custody?
Even a broken clock is right twice a day. I will say that as a result, unfortunately, of political and public pressure, Catherine Fernandez-Rundle has allowed her prosecutorial discretion to be manipulated by that pressure. So she might be doing the right thing, but maybe it's for the wrong reasons. I won't criticize her for that. I will say that in 28 years, she has never prosecuted an on-duty police officer for a killing, ever, in her entire 28 years in office. That's utterly impossible. That no crime has been committed in that time. I'm happy to see her take abuse of power more seriously, because let me tell you, criminals are going to do crime. That's why we have a criminal justice system. That's why we spend billions of dollars a year on prosecutors, judges, bailiffs, courts, prisons. We know that some element of this, some percentage of our community they're going to be antisocial, they're going to exhibit criminal behavior, and they have to pay a price for it. But when people in the public sector, whether they're police officers or whether they're elected officials or even just people who work in government, when they break the law, that is the disintegration of the social contract. That is the end of democracy. That is the end of accountability and law and order. That it is arguably worse, because criminals we expect to do crimes. People who are sworn to uphold the law, to create the laws, to enforce the laws, to interpret the laws, we expect better from those people, and they should be held to a higher standard of accountability, not a lower standard. They have the power to deprive us of life, liberty, and property. How could they be held to a lower standard than some crack dealer,
right,
or marijuana dealer, for that matter?
Right. Let's talk about that for a second, because you focus on corruption and even corrupt cops, like you just mentioned now, but you are, I know, pro-police. And as a reserve police officer with the city of Miami, I'm a police officer turned broadcaster. I appreciate that. And this whole nonsense about defunding the police, I think, is ridiculous. I think police officers and police departments need better funding, better training, and more resources to do their jobs better. But definitely corrupt cops need to be flushed out. And unfortunately, they do exist in police departments across the nation. How did last
And
summer's...
we need to incentivize
Sure.
good cops. That's what we need to do. We need to pay them better. We need to
yes.
give them the equipment they need.
Yes.
We need to give them the training that they need, and we need to incentivize them to root out. They know better than anybody. I asked former Chief Colina many years ago. I said, Chief, if there are good cops who know who the bad cops are but do nothing about it, are they still good cops?
Good question. What
And
did he answer?
No. He said no. Quickly. He said no. But what I just said is easier said than done.
Right.
I get it, and I will say that I have a lot of police officers who don't feel empowered.
Yeah.
And part of what I try to do with my platform, in fact, is speak for people who don't necessarily have a voice in the community, and that includes good cops.
Yeah.
That includes good cops who feel like it's harder to change shit from the inside than it is from the outside.
Which are the majority, by the way. No police officer wakes up every morning and goes out, puts the uniform on, and say, "Oh, let's see who I can beat up today, or who can I kill today." That's not what police officers are about. It's a thankless job, and it's very difficult, much more so during these times. And we really got to do more for our men and women in uniform. I totally agree with you. How did last summer's conversation and events and the uprising sit with you? And do you believe, or do you have a unique Billy Corben spin on perhaps a document? Is it perhaps a documentary in the making?
I believe in democracy. I believe in the criminal justice system. I believe in law and order. I believe in freedom. I believe in liberty, and I believe in human rights and civil rights, be it for the people in Cuba or for the people in the United States. Mm-hmm. And if the government is in any way treating one group of people differently than another group of people, we need to have equal accountability under the law. We need to have justice when people who are supposed to uphold the law violate it. And I'm a big believer in peaceful protests. I don't want to say I'm a believer in shutting down the Palmetto Expressway, but I'm a supporter of the sentiment and the passion behind it. And I don't believe that the state of Florida should have a law that makes that a felony, that makes simply shutting down a roadway a violent crime, which it in fact does. The sponsor of that bill, Randy Fine, said that it is a violent crime to shut down a roadway in peaceful protest. I fundamentally disagree. And I support the right of people in this country and in any country to protest their government, to protest a government. Someone said to me, well, how do you get freedom in Cuba by shutting down the Palmetto Expressway in Hialeah? I said, it doesn't matter. This is what democracy looks like. Right. This is how we get to express ourselves in this country. And I don't think that police officers in riot gear, as met some of the peaceful protesters in downtown Miami last year, as met some of the peaceful protesters last year outside FIU. I don't think there should be police officers in riot gear shooting chemical agents at those people, regardless of what they're protesting for. Listen, unfortunately, I would support the Ku Klux Klan if they chose to have a peaceful march or demonstration. I do not have to agree with them, but I will fight to the death for their right to their stupid opinion and to express their stupid opinion, because I have a right to my stupid opinion and you have a right to call my opinion stupid.
Peacefully. That's the main word, right? And it's our constitutional right to do so. And that's what makes this country so great. I totally agree with you there. Listen, the week Cocaine Cowboys was released, the Coast Guard just announced the seize of it's the biggest drug bust in the history, and its history with, it was like $1.4 billion, I think it was. I thought Sal and Will are still in custody, no?
Listen, the Netflix marketing machine does not screw around. They're promoting the shit out of this. I got to tell you.
You knew that shipment was coming and that the Coast Guard was going to intercept, and you said, bingo, this is our launch date for our new series, for our new project.
Maybe that's the next documentary. Who are the new kings of Miami, right? Other than you, Enrique. Other than you.
No, you, my friend, are the king of Miami. I've enjoyed this chat. Looking forward to meeting you in person. I feel we have a lot in common. I think you're a brilliant mind. I'd love to have you on the show and more often. Ladies and gentlemen,
I love it.
Please, he's Billy Corben, and his latest project is another installment of the Cocaine Cowboys. story, but this time it's a riveting 6-part series on Netflix. It's absolutely fantastic. I've watched it 1.5 times. I'm gonna finish watching it the second time. It's told in a great way, like only Billy Corben and his team know how to do it. It's about the biggest cocaine drug bust in United States history, courtesy of 2 Cuban friends and Miami high school dropouts, Sal Magluta and Willie Falcon. Thank you again for joining us. Billy Corben, muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Thank you for having me.